All right. On this backside, it said it wanted you to just practice and play tic-tac-toe with your neighbor. So, um, well, my name is Angel, and so I'm gonna play Auntie Angel because there's no one. I don't have a neighbor. No one here. Whatever. You gotta work with what you got. So, percent equation. I'm going to use the one I use with my students. I'm gonna save those proportions for a different situation. They're not too necessary right now, but you can use it if you like. I show an example up here. So, I'm just gonna go through all of these. Angel chooses this one right here. This middle one, of course. So, Mary decreased her time for the mile walk from 30 minutes to 24 minutes. What is the percent of decrease? So, I'm looking for percent of decrease. And I know that it's change divided by the original amount. Well, how much was the change? How do I find the change? Well, she went from 30 minutes to 24 minutes. That's a change of 6. Okay. How much was the original amount? Well, she started off with 30 minutes. Divide those two. You get 6 divided by 30, which is 0.2. Lastly, I need to write that as a percentage. So 0.2, you're going to move the decimal to the right twice, once, twice. Fill any gaps in with 0. And that's going to be 20%. So there was a 20%. Was it increase or decrease? It was a decrease. All right, so that was my first option. And then, let's see. Let's make them. Gotta want it. Yeah, all that for nothing. Let's make them red, anti-angel. All right, so anti-angel wants this corner one right here. So Dustin bought a DVD player that was marked down from $150 to $100, so it was marked down. Find the percent of decrease. So again, percent of decrease, that equals change divided by the original. Okay, so how much was the change? Well, it went from $150 to 100, so that should have been 100. 150 minus 100, which is just 50, right? And then on the bottom, you have the original. How much was the original? 150. Divide 50 by 150. Let's clear all this. 50 divided by 150, and you get 0.33333. And that is changed to 33.3%. Increase or decrease? This was a decrease. All right, so that was that top right one. Okay, now regular angel is going to choose, let's choose this one over here. Let's see. I'm choosing this one right here. A pair of socks is purchased at wholesale for $2. It is then sold for $4 to the customer. What is the percent of increase? So I want percent of increase. And I know it's going to be the change divided by the original amount. So how much was the change? Well, it started with $2. It changed to $4. How much did it change by? Well, 4 minus 2, that gives me 2. How much was the original amount? Well, the original, it was originally purchased for $2. So it's going to be, the original amount was 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 1 as a percentage, we'll take that decimal, move it to the right twice, once, twice. Fill in any gaps with zeros. And it's going to be 100% increase because the price went up. 100% increase. All right, so that was that one. And now, Auntie Angel is going to choose this top left one. See what this gets me. It says a sweater is marked down from $25 to $19. What is the percent of change? So it's going to be percent of, well, is it increasing or decreasing? It's marked down, right? So it's going to be decreasing. Equals the change divided by the original. So how much was the change? Well, 25 to 19, that's 6. How much was the original? 25. So 6 divided by 25, we get 0.24. And then write that as a percentage. Take the decimal, move it to the right twice, once, twice. And this is going to be 24% decrease. All right, so that was that top left one. Now I'm going to do, regular Angel's going to do this middle one he asked you, or else Auntie Angel's going to win, and we don't want that. As a club fundraiser, a group of students washed 40 cars one weekend. The next weekend, they washed 70 cars. What was the percent of increase in the number of cars washed? So percent of increase, that equals the change divided by the original amount. So one weekend they washed 40. The next they washed 70. So 70 minus 40 is 30. How much was the original amount? Well, the original time they washed 40 cars. So 30 divided by 40, we get 0.75. And your job is to write this as a percentage. So 1, 2. And that is going to be how much? 75%. Increase or decrease? Increase, right? So they had a 75% increase the next time around. Okay, Auntie Angel wants to do, try whatever he can do. So he's going to do, haha. I think Auntie Angel just lost. Whatever, let's keep going. Chump. Anyways, a 7th grade class experienced a 15% decrease in enrollment. Last year, the 7th grade class had 280 students. How many students enrolled in the 7th grade class this year? So, think about what we have. So, we have the percent of change. equals the amount of change divided by the original amount. So I'm going to use a little bit of a different equation for this one. I'm going to write the final amount divided by the original amount. And the reason I can do that is because this percent of change is going to be how much it's going to be affected by 100. So I'll show you what I mean. So this percent of change right here, well, they gave us the percent of change right there. It's a 15% decrease, okay? So originally there was 100%. It's a 15% decrease. So I have 100% minus 15%. And so how do I write that? Well, that's going to be 85% equals the final divided by the original. Well, how much was it says how many students are enrolled this year? Well, the original amount. How much was the original amount? Well, this was last year, right? So last year it was 280. That's the original amount. And now you want to figure out the final. So that's what we have to do. Okay, now, as I tell my students, percentages are nice for interpreting and comprehending, but when you're calculating math, not so useful. So we need the actual number of this right here. So how do we write 85% as a number? We'll take that decimal, move it backwards to the left twice, and you'll get 0.85. Okay, you're trying to figure out what the final amount is. So what's going to be this year? So call this some unknown value x. How do I get x by itself from here? Well, it looks like I'm going to have to multiply both sides by 280 to get that 280 out of the bottom. So 280 on top, 280 on bottom. X divided by 1 times 1, that's just x. On the left side, 280 times 0.85, we get 238 students. 238 students. So that's how much we started off with. Or sorry, that's incorrect. That's how much we finished with, right? How many students are enrolled in the class this year? So that's how much we ended up with. So 238 students. This year. So these are a little bit different, a little bit harder. My students had a tough time with these because it wasn't just finding the percentage. There's 3 kinds of problems you come across. You're either finding the percent of change, or the starting amount, or the final amount. Starting, original, same thing. So that's what you have to look for. It depends on what it asks. So Anti-Angel's about to win, but let's say he didn't. Let's say, oh, I'm going to choose this bottom left box. I don't know why. He should choose this box, but that's okay. But then the other angel's going to win, or not. Enrollment in the PTA increased by 35% this year. Last year, there were 160 members in the PTA. How many PTA members are involved this year? So remember, I have percent of change equals the final amount divided by the original amount. So it says 35%. It increased 35% this year. So it increased 35% this year. Well, how do I write that? How do I write increase 35%? It's going to be 100 plus 35%, right? So this is 135%. How much was the, well, did they give us the final or the original? Or the original? Since last year there were 160 members. So is this number final or original? Well, that is going to be the original, last year. I'm missing the final amount, so I'm going to put an X value in for that. Again, the reason I know to do this is because they gave me the percentage already. So I know this is not one where I'm looking for the percentage. I'm looking for either the original or the final amount. So, like I said before, this right here is no good to us. This needs to be a number. So change this to a number. Move the decimal to the left once, twice. And so it's going to be 1.35 equals X over 160. How do I get X by itself? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides by 160. And so 160 on top, 160 on bottom. We're left with X. On the left side, you have 160 times 1.35, and you get 216. So how many PTA members were involved this year? Well, 216 PTA members this year. All right, so that was that bottom left one. Okay, Anti-Angel's gonna choose this middle one right here because he's blind. To visit the top of the Empire State Building, a ticket costs $4 in 1999. In 2009, the price rose to $20. What was the percent of change? So this one I am looking for the percent of change. And that equals the change divided by the OG. So how much was the change? Well, it says it went from $4 to $20. So we got 20 minus 4, which is 16. What was the original amount? Well, the original cost was $4. And so 16 divided by 4, you can use a calculator or hopefully your brain. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Write this right here as a percentage. So move the decimal to the right twice, once, twice. And you get fill in any gaps with zeros. So this is a percent of change of 400%. Now, is that an increase or a decrease? Well, it changed from $4 to $20, so that is definitely a huge increase. I think it's more now because I went in 2012 and gosh, it was ridiculous. I did not want to go up that building for 20 something, $30. Not worth it. It's just a building, in my opinion. All right, and this last one looks like we have a tie. Tom's weekly salary increased from $240 to $288. What is the percent of change? So percent of change equals the change divided by the original. Well, how much did it change by? 288 minus 240. That is 48. And then what was the original amount? 240. Divide that. 48 divided by 240 is 0.2. Write that as a percentage. It's going to be 20%. Because this right here is 0.20. So 20% increase or decrease? What do we think? Well, he had 240 before. Now he has 288. So that changes to, sorry, it's an increase, right? And there we are. That was the back of that first page. It was the back of the percent of change. Next, I'm going to work on I believe it's the homework. Is that what it is? Yeah, the homework for the percent of change.